Olivia, radiant in a silk sapphire gown that beautifully accentuated her 7-month baby bump, offered a polite smile as flashbulbs popped around her. She felt a weariness deep in her bones, yet pride swelled within her. Tonight marked her triumphant return to the spotlight. Beside her stood her billionaire husband, Ethan, a man she believed she knew intimately. Nearby, Chloe stepped forward, the picture of elegance and poise, holding 2 flutes of champagne. "You deserve this, Olivia," Chloe said, her voice a soft purr, accompanied by a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Olivia, ever trusting, accepted the glass. She missed the fleeting, knowing glance Chloe exchanged with Ethan. She remained oblivious to the danger lurking beneath the sweet, innocent bubbles. Her senses were filled only with the warmth of the celebration, though a tiny, persistent whisper in her heart warned that it all felt a little too perfect. She took a sip, completely unaware that betrayal had just brushed against her lips. Within moments, a tremor ran through her fingers. Her heart began to pound erratically. Something was terribly wrong. Chloe turned away, careful to conceal the smirk that played on her lips. The ambient sounds of laughter and clinking glasses dissolved into a disorienting blur. Olivia's vision clouded, the lights above swimming like ghosts in a storm. Her breath quickened. She reached for Ethan's arm, but her hand slipped off his tailored sleeve. He turned, but it was too late. Her knees gave out. A collective gasp ripped through the crowd as Olivia collapsed, the crystal flute shattering beside her swollen belly. Her body hit the marble floor with a sickening crack. The music stopped abruptly. Dresses rustled. Phones emerged, their screens glowing. Ethan dropped to his knees, his voice sharp with panic. But there was something absent in his eyes. No genuine fear, no real pain. Only the look of a man caught off guard. "Call an ambulance." Someone screamed. Olivia's head lolled to the side, her eyes barely open. The room spun wildly. She tried to speak, to move, to ask what was happening. But the darkness swallowed her whole as the crowd circled like vultures in designer shoes. Chloe watched it unfold like a scene she had written herself, hidden from direct view behind a cluster of oblivious guests. Her plan had worked. The drug had done its job subtle, hard to trace, yet potent enough to fell a woman in front of 100 witnesses. The whispers had already begun. Is she okay? Is the baby safe? What happened? But all Chloe heard was the sweet sound of victory. She had waited months, meticulously playing the role of the sweet friend, the harmless assistant, the innocent shadow behind Olivia's glow. But tonight, she was no mere shadow. She was the one pulling the strings. And Ethan, well, he had played his part perfectly. A soft squeeze of his hand earlier, a subtle nod across the ballroom. And now his wife was out of the way, just as they had planned. Chloe's smile deepened. This was only the beginning. Sharp, sterile white lights assaulted Olivia's eyes as they fluttered open. She didn't know where she was at first. The rhythmic beeping, the scent of antiseptic, the cold tightness in her chest. A hospital. Her hand instinctively flew to her belly. Still there. Still kicking. Relief, potent and swift, washed over her. But then came the fear. What had happened? Why had she collapsed? She looked to the side. Ethan sat near the window, engrossed in his phone, pointedly not looking at her. He didn't jump up. He didn't rush to hold her hand. He just said, "You're awake." His voice flat, distant. Olivia's stomach twisted, and not from the pregnancy. The doctor entered, clipboard in hand, his face serious. "You had a strong sedative in your system. We were lucky to catch it in time. Another few minutes and, well, the baby might not have made it." Olivia's throat closed. She hadn't taken anything. She hadn't done anything. How did it get into her system? She looked at Ethan again. He studiously avoided her eyes. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. She tried to remember the gala, the people, the lights, and then she remembered the drink. Chloe, the pain, that smile. Her heart dropped. "Who gave me that drink?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan shrugged. "You were mingling. Could have been anyone." But it hadn't been anyone. It had been her. Olivia felt it in her bones. The betrayal sat heavy on her chest, pressing down harder than the sedative ever could. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the ceiling, letting the jagged pieces fall into place. Something inside her shattered, but something else had awakened within her. She wouldn't be a victim. Not again. Not this time. As the machines beeped softly around her, Olivia made a silent promise to herself. She would find the truth. She would expose every lie, every secret, every whisper behind her back. Chloe, Ethan, the fake love, the poison dressed in diamonds, the lies hidden under expensive suits and luxury. They thought she was weak. They thought she'd fall and never rise. But they had no idea what she was capable of. She stared up at the ceiling and whispered to herself, "They're going to pay. Every single one of them." She was about to reach for her phone when the sound of Ethan's voice from behind his closed office door froze her mid-step. Then she heard Chloe's voice. Soft, sharp, unbearably smug. "It's almost done, Ethan. Just a few more weeks, and she'll be out of the way for good." Olivia's heart plummeted. She moved closer, barely breathing. Ethan's deep voice followed, calm but cold. "I've already talked to the lawyers. After the baby is born, we file. She won't see it coming." Olivia clapped a hand over her mouth, tears instantly welling in her eyes. Chloe laughed, a chilling sound. She's still clinging to her fairy tale. Poor thing thinks you still love her. Olivia's knees buckled. She leaned against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. Ethan said nothing. The silence hurt more than any lie. Then Chloe whispered, "And when we take over the foundation, we'll make it look like she was never fit to lead it." Olivia blinked through her tears. Her foundation, the charity she built from scratch, her passion. Chloe giggled again. "We don't even need to wait for her to leave. We could just push her out quietly. Ethan's voice turned cruel. She's too soft. Always has been. That's why she'll lose. Olivia backed away slowly, desperately trying not to make sound. Her world was spinning. The man she loved was a stranger. A monster, hidden behind a closed door. Chloe's last words cut the deepest. When she falls, make sure she knows it wasn't an accident. Olivia didn't know how she made it back downstairs. She didn't know how she kept breathing. But one thing was devastatingly clear. Her marriage, her life, was built on a foundation of treacherous lies. The following morning, as Olivia looked at Ethan across the breakfast table, it felt as though she were staring at a stranger, a ghost of the man she thought she knew. He smiled at her, poured her orange juice, asked how she slept. His mask was perfect, but Olivia now knew it was just Theta mask. Every word he said, every glance, every feigned concern for her health, it all felt poisoned. She thought back to the day he proposed in Florence. The scattered rose petals, the haunting melody of the violin, the tears that had glistened in his eyes. How could it all have been a lie? Was she ever really loved? Or had she just been a tool? Something beautiful to show off. Something quiet to control. She thought about their wedding. The vows he made. The way he held her hand and promised forever. But forever had ended the moment he began planning her downfall. Chloe hadn't ruined their marriage. No, Ethan had willingly handed it to her. Olivia remembered every late night he claimed to be working, every sudden business trip he took without warning. It all made a sickening kind of sense now. The whispers, the growing distance, the sudden coldness. He hadn't changed. He had simply revealed who he truly was. And all this time, she had been clinging to a fantasy. A marriage built on empty promises. A husband who rehearsed lies like business deals. As she sat at the same table where they once laughed and shared dreams, she realized something terrible. The man she loved never existed. He was just a role Ethan played until he didn't need her anymore. Olivia couldn't sleep that night. Her mind spun like a storm. One part of her, the foolish, tender part, still loved him. That part remembered his warmth, his kisses, the way he used to hold her belly and smile when the baby kicked. That part begged her to forgive him, to believe there was still something real beneath the layers of deceit. But the other part, stronger now, hardened by betrayal, knew better. That part screamed at her to run, to protect herself, to protect the precious life growing inside her. She walked into the nursery they had been decorating together. The soft cream walls, a color they had chosen with such hope, now mocked her. Ethan had painted them with his own hands. Or so she had believed. Now she wondered if even that was just for show. Her hands trembled as she picked up the tiny, unworn shoes she had bought just last week. A single tear fell onto the soft fabric. How can I bring a child into a home built on such profound betrayal? She whispered to the silent room. She tried to picture leaving. But where would she go? Who would believe her? Ethan possessed money, power, and a charm that could disarm anyone. The thought of fighting him, of raising a child alone in a world that might not believe her, was terrifying. Her hope was fading. But the idea of staying, of pretending, of living a lie, tore her apart. Every second under the same roof felt like ingesting poison. Now, when she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She had been stronger once. Fierce. Brave. She had to find that woman again, even if it meant walking directly into the fire. But her heart felt weak and shattered. Her baby was innocent. Her world was crumbling. And between love and betrayal, she didn't know which would kill her faster. 2 days later, at a charity event hosted by Olivia's own foundation, Chloe arrived arm in arm with Ethan. Olivia was already there, greeting guests, forcing a smile, pretending her world wasn't breaking apart inside. But when she saw them enter, her breath hitched. Chloe wore a striking red dress bold, loud, a clear statement of victory before the war had even officially begun. She leaned into Ethan, laughing as if she owned him. And perhaps, Olivia thought with a pang, she did. The room went quiet. Whispers started instantly, spreading like a contagion. Olivia stood still, clutching her glass so tight her fingers turned white. Ethan walked straight past her, not even a glance in her direction. Chloe, though, offered a small, triumphant smirk. Not a word, just that smug smile that screamed, "I've already won." Reporters snapped pictures. Cameras flashed. And just like that, Olivia was no longer the queen of her own story. She was the outsider, the discarded wife, the forgotten woman. Chloe didn't need to utter a single word. Her very presence, so confidently at Ethan's side, said it all. She was here to take over Olivia's man, Olivia's event, Olivia's life. And Ethan, he didn't stop her. He stood there, letting Chloe shine, letting the world assume she was his real partner. Olivia turned to walk away, but she felt every eye on her back judging, pitying, waiting for her to fall apart. But she didn't. Not tonight. Not in public. Not yet. By morning, the headlines exploded. Billionaire's new flame steals the spotlight. Where was the wife? Charity queen fades into the background. Photos of Chloe in red were everywhere, posed next to Ethan, laughing, glowing. Some articles called Olivia reclusive. Others hinted she was unstable. One even dared to ask, is pregnancy taking a toll on her mental health? Olivia sat on the floor, her phone in hand, scrolling through the venomous lies. Chloe played her part to perfection, shedding just enough crocodile tears when asked about Olivia, claiming she respected the marriage but couldn't deny real love. And Ethan remained silent. Not one statement, not one word of defense. The man who once swore to protect her from the world now watched impassively as the world destroyed her reputation. Friends stopped calling. Donors pulled back their support. Even her own team at the foundation started avoiding eye contact. Everyone believed what they saw online. Olivia cried in the shower that night, the hot water mingling with her tears as she tried to scrub the shame and humiliation off her skin. Chloe wasn't just stealing her husband. She was stealing her voice, her image, her very identity. And the worst part, it was working. Olivia wasn't just losing in private anymore. She was being publicly humiliated in front of the entire world. The board meeting was supposed to be about expansion, about the future. But Olivia could feel something was off the moment she walked in. Chloe was already seated at the end of the long mahogany table, smiling as if she owned the place. Ethan didn't even look surprised. Chloe will be advising on the merger, Ethan announced, his tone leaving no room for discussion. Olivia blinked, stunned. She doesn't work for us. Chloe laughed softly, a sound that grated on Olivia's nerves. I do now. Ethan says the board could use a fresh perspective. The room remained silent. No one challenged him. Not even the CFO Olivia had hired herself. She tried to speak, to protest this outrage. But Ethan cut her off. Let's keep this professional. Olivia. Her heart pounded in her chest. Professional. Bringing his mistress into her company, into her meetings, into her world. She gripped the edge of the table, forcing herself to breathe. Chloe leaned closer, her perfume cloying. We'll be seeing a lot more of each other. I look forward to learning everything you know. It was a threat disguised as a compliment, a warning wrapped in expensive perfume and red lipstick. Olivia smiled tightly, her voice low but firm. Be careful, Chloe. Some things you learn the hard way. But inside, she was falling apart. Her foundation, her business, her purpose seat was all being taken from her, piece by painstaking piece. And Ethan, he watched it happen with calm, cold eyes. This wasn't just a personal battle anymore. It was war. And in war, someone always loses everything. That night, Olivia made a call, one she never thought she'd have to make. She met the private investigator in a quiet, dimly lit cafe far from the prying eyes of the city. I need proof, she said, her voice resolute. Of everything. The man nodded, his expression unreadable. You'll have it. Just be ready for the truth. A week passed, each day an eternity. Then, a discreet package arrived. Inside were photographs, documents, call logs, voice recordings. Olivia opened them with shaking hands. At first, she saw what she expected, Chloe and Ethan in clandestine meetings at hotels. Records of late-night calls. But then it went deeper, much deeper. Chloe had been entangled in Ethan's life long before Olivia had ever entered the picture. The affair hadn't just happened. It was orchestrated, planned from the start. Chloe had targeted him for his money, for his power. And once he married Olivia, they decided she was the final obstacle to be removed. Olivia unearthed a photograph dated 4 years prior, Chloe and Ethan in Barcelona, holding hands, looking very much like a couple. It was taken just 2 months before he had proposed to Olivia. Her whole relationship, her marriage, was based on a lie, a setup. She dropped the papers, her heart racing, a cold dread seeping into her. Chloe had even followed her, pretended to be her friend, insidiously inserting herself into every part of her life. It wasn't just an affair. It was a takeover, a slow, cruel ambush. And Ethan, he had let it happen. He had helped it happen. Olivia stared at the damning evidence, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of fire. Now she had the truth. And soon, so would everyone else. Olivia sat alone in her bedroom, staring at her wedding album. Every picture was now a cruel joke, a meticulously staged performance. She flipped to the photo where Ethan kissed her forehead, a look of feigned adoration in his eyes. In that very moment, he had already betrayed her. Chloe was already there, a lurking shadow in their supposed happiness. The affair didn't start after the vows. It started long before the ring. It wasn't mere cheating. It was strategy. Chloe wasn't a mistake. She was an integral part of the plan. Olivia remembered how Chloe had first come into her life as a PR consultant helper, a confidant, a friend. She brought coffee. She offered unsolicited advice. She smiled like a sister. And the whole time, she was sleeping with Olivia's fiancé. Olivia clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. The lies ran deeper than she could have ever imagined. Chloe had been meticulously building her empire on Olivia's back, pretending, plotting, poisoning everything Olivia held dear. Ethan had known. He played the role of the loving husband, all while actively helping his mistress rise. And Olivia, she was just the placeholder, the convenient distraction, the useful image, the good wife for public consumption, until they were ready to replace her. But they forgot one crucial thing. Olivia wasn't weak. Not anymore. And now that she knew the unvarnished truth, she would make damn sure the world knew it too. Olivia stood in front of Ethan, holding the file. Her hands were steady. Her voice was cold as ice. I know everything. Ethan. Barcelona. The foundation. Chloe. Even before our wedding. All of it. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stared at her as if she were speaking in tongues. You sound unhinged. Olivia. She opened the folder, spreading out the photos, the documents, the call logs. Don't lie. Not anymore. Ethan chuckled. A harsh, dismissive sound. So what? You hired a PI. You think this changes anything? It changes everything. She snapped, her composure cracking for a moment. You were cheating before you even married me. You and Chloe. This was never love. It was a setup. His eyes turned sharp, predatory. You're emotional. You're pregnant. You're seeing things that aren't real. Gaslighting me won't work anymore, she said, her voice regaining its steel. I've been quiet. I've been kind. But I'm done pretending. Ethan stepped closer, his presence imposing. Careful, Olivia. You could lose everything. She stared into his face, the face she once trusted with her whole heart, and saw nothing. No guilt, no regret, just arrogance, just a chilling display of power. I already lost you, she whispered, the words laced with a profound sadness. But now I know who you really are. He laughed, a sound devoid of humor. No one will believe you. I control the media. The board. The lawyers. You have nothing. I have the truth, she said, her chin held high. And I will make sure you regret underestimating me. Ethan shook his head, a condescending smirk playing on his lips. You're not strong enough. Olivia turned away, her shoulders set. We'll see. The man she married was gone, replaced by a stranger. And strangers don't get second chances. Olivia sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the press release draft in her hand. If she sent it, everything would explode. The foundation would likely collapse. The investors would scatter. Ethan's empire would burn. But so, potentially, would hers. The story laid everything bare: Chloe's calculated betrayal, Ethan's despicable lies, the hidden affair that began long before the vows were ever spoken. She had everything: names, dates, damning pictures. It was enough to destroy them, but it would undoubtedly destroy her public image too. A public war meant public pain. And her baby, what kind of world would she bring him into if she chose revenge over peace? Her phone buzzed. A message from her lawyer. We can leak it anonymously. No one will trace it to you. But she knew better. Once the fire started, it couldn't be controlled. She could walk away, take a quiet divorce, disappear with her child, start over. But would that be silent strength or surrender? Her hands trembled. Her heart screamed in turmoil. Her soul ached with the weight of the decision. One press of a button and everything would change. Ethan would lose everything. Chloe's name would be dragged through the deepest mud. Justice would be hers. But peace might never come. Olivia closed her eyes, breathed in deeply, then slowly exhaled. The world had taken so much from her trust, her name, her love. But they hadn't taken her voice. And now she had to choose: use it, or protect what little she had left. She opened her eyes and whispered, "This ends now." But no one knew yet. Would she burn it all down or walk away forever? Olivia sat in her study, hands trembling as she flipped through the stack of papers the private investigator had delivered. There, buried deep within bank records and concealed email threads, was a forged will. It was dated 3 months before Ethan had even proposed to her. Her name had been systematically wiped clean. Her ownership in the company she'd poured her heart and soul into gone. Her assets, her inheritance, even the house they shared. Everything had been reassigned to Chloe. A chill ran down her spine as the horrifying truth sank in. This wasn't just a fling. It wasn't even about love. This was a meticulously planned setup. Chloe had orchestrated it from the very beginning, worming her way into Olivia's life, pretending to be a friend, a sister figure, all while systematically stealing everything from beneath her feet. Olivia's face hardened, her jaw set in a determined line. They thought she'd stay silent, that she'd go quietly with her pregnancy and her broken heart. But they were profoundly wrong. Olivia wasn't done. She was just getting started. The name on the document struck Olivia like a physical blow: Robert Miller, Ethan's longtime lawyer, the very man who had raised a toast to their happiness at their wedding. Now, he was listed as the one who processed the forged will. The silent, complicit witness behind every fraudulent paper trail. She dug deeper. Chloe had been sending him substantial payments under a shell company for months before the counterfeit documents were even filed. Olivia's lips curled in disbelief. Chloe didn't just steal her husband. She methodically stole the entire empire. Using the law itself like a sharpened knife. And Robert Miller. He was her blade. Olivia clutched the evidence tightly. There were emails, wire transfers, even damning voice recordings. This wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. Planned, precise, and utterly ruthless. This wasn't just a love triangle. It was a crime. And while they smiled for cameras and played house, Olivia had gathered every incriminating piece. Now, she held the match. All that was left was to strike. The gala glittered like a dream. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over velvet gowns, and champagne flowed like water. Ethan and Chloe stood center stage, smiling like royalty, the picture of a power couple. The announcement was clear. They were taking over the company together. The assembled guests cheered, oblivious. Then, the grand doors at the far end of the ballroom slammed open. Gasps rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Olivia entered, a vision in a shimmering gold gown that lovingly hugged her 8-month belly. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with the sharp report of gunshots. Silence fell, broken only by hushed whispers that chased her as she walked straight past the bewildered guards. Her eyes locked on the stage. Chloe's face went pale. Ethan froze mid-speech. Olivia didn't flinch. She climbed the stage slowly, her back straight, her inner fire undeniable. "Sorry to crash your little fairy tale," she said calmly, her voice cutting through the room like ice. "But I've got something to share, too." Chloe's smile twitched. Ethan tried to intervene, to stop her, but it was too late. Olivia had waited long enough. It was her turn now. Her turn to burn it all down. The microphone squeaked as Olivia grabbed it. The crowd stood frozen, champagne flutes dangling in midair. Olivia looked straight ahead, her voice steady, though her hands were tight around the evidence she carried. "Some of you may know me as Ethan's wife," she began, her tone soft, almost kind. "Others know me as the co-founder of Belgrave Holdings." Heads turned. Board members stiffened. "But what you don't know," she said, pausing for dramatic effect, "is how much has been stolen from me." Her eyes met Chloe's. "By someone who smiled in my face while sleeping in my bed." Murmurs rose, a wave of shock and disbelief. Chloe laughed nervously, a high-pitched, unnatural sound. But Olivia raised a hand, silencing the room. Not just betrayal, fraud, lies, forged documents. She pulled out a folder, waving it gently. "And I have proof." Ethan's face twitched. Chloe took a shaky step forward, but no one moved. The room waited, captivated. Olivia had turned a glittering gala into a courtroom, and she most definitely had the floor. Olivia opened the folder and read, each word sharper than the last. "This is the original will." She held it up. "And this she said, holding up another document. It's the forgery. Gasps echoed through the hall. Signed by Robert Miller. Witnessed by no one. Filed illegally. She turned to the crowd, her gaze sweeping over them. All designed to transfer my company, my shares, my very home, to her, Olivia declared, her hand dramatically pointing at Chloe, who stood frozen, while I carried his child. Olivia's voice cracked but didn't break. This wasn't an affair. It was a setup from the start. She played the long game, and he let her. Ethan stepped forward, lips parted in protest, but Olivia raised her voice, overriding him. And I was silent. Until now. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her spine stayed ramrod straight. You can steal a man. You can steal a house. But you cannot steal my story. That's mine. And tonight, I'm taking it back. The room erupted. Chloe's face twisted, her voice suddenly sweet and shaking. She's confused. She's hormonal. She's not well. Olivia stared at her, cold and unmoved. You think this is confusion? She snapped, lifting a phone and playing the recordings. Chloe's voice filled the silent room clear, smug, and utterly damning. Her laughter, her callous plans, her voice derisively calling Olivia a baby factory echoed off the walls. The crowd gasped again, louder this time. She's lying. Chloe shrieked, grabbing at the mic. You're sick. Olivia. This is all fake. But no one looked convinced. Olivia stood calm as Chloe unraveled. He loves me. Chloe sobbed, her eyes darting desperately towards Ethan. Tell them. Ethan. Please. Tell them this is all fake. But Ethan was frozen, his eyes fixed on the floor, shame and horror warring on his face. Olivia took a step closer. You thought I'd be quiet forever. She whispered, her voice carrying in the sudden hush. But lies don't last. Especially not when I've got the truth recorded in your own voice. Chloe's lips trembled. Her carefully constructed charm was cracking, shattering. The crowd had heard enough. And so had Olivia. Ethan's world collapsed in seconds. His wife's calm, righteous rage, the crowd's judgmental stares, the press whispering like vultures. His voice failed him. Olivia. I didn't know. I didn't. But she turned away, dismissing him. He grabbed her arm, desperate. Please, let me explain. Her eyes met his empty, cold, unfamiliar. You believed her lies over my truth, she said, her voice flat. You watched me cry, bleed, carry your child, and still turned your back. Chloe reached for him, but he stepped back, shaking. You used me, Ethan finally whispered, not to Olivia, but seemingly to Chloe. This wasn't love. Chloe's defiant smile was gone, replaced by disbelief. I thought you loved me, she whispered back, her voice barely audible. But his eyes never left Olivia. I made a mistake. He breathed, his voice heavy with a dawning, devastating realization. But Olivia shook her head slowly. No, Ethan, Olivia corrected, her voice devoid of warmth. You made a choice. And with those words, she walked past him, leaving him in the ruins of their life. He stayed still, broken. For the first time, the billionaire had no words, no power, just the wreckage of everything he'd single-handedly destroyed. Chloe's hands shook as she tried to gather herself, but it was too late. The press surged forward, flashes blinding her. Miss Chloe, were you aware of the forgery? Did you pay off Robert Miller? Was it all for money? Security stepped in, blocking cameras, but it was no use. The investors were already moving, whispering urgently among themselves. One turned to Ethan, his face a mask of fury. You let this happen. Chloe screamed, trying to regain control of the room, her voice desperate and shrill. I'm not the villain. She's lying. But the crowd only stared, their expressions ranging from disgust to contempt. Her charm had vanished. Her lies were exposed. Olivia stepped down from the stage as the security team moved in. A woman in a sharp black suit whispered something into a walkie-talkie. And moments later, two uniformed guards approached Chloe. Mom, we need you to come with us. Chloe panicked. This isn't happening. I'm the future of this company. But no one believed her anymore. Ethan dropped to his knees. Olivia, please, don't let it end like this. Don't take everything away. She looked down at him, her swollen belly a testament to their shared past. The years of pain a heavy burden behind her. You already took everything from me, she said quietly. Now I'm just taking back what's mine. He tried to grab her hand. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. Start over. Raise our baby together. Please. Olivia didn't flinch. You didn't believe me when I begged, when I cried. Now you believe me because the whole world saw. Her voice was calm, but it cut deep. I begged you not to trust her. I begged you to listen. You told me I was crazy. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. But Olivia didn't reply. Her silence was louder than any scream. It was over, and nothing he said could undo what he had allowed and actively participated in happening. Olivia walked out of that ballroom with her head held high, her baby safe inside her. The cameras followed, but she didn't stop. Reporters shouted questions. Photographers clicked relentlessly. None of it mattered. Behind her, Ethan crumbled. Chloe screamed. The empire burned. But Olivia, she didn't look back. Her heels hit the pavement like a victory drum. Her lawyer met her outside, holding a new file. Inside were papers transferring full control of her shares back to her. The board had voted unanimously after her speech. Congratulations, the lawyer said, a respectful smile on his face. You just got everything back. Olivia smiled, a genuine smile, for the first time in months. Not because she won, but because she survived. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need forgiveness from them. She had truth. He had power, or so he thought. But she had herself. As she stepped into the car, someone asked, "What will you do now?" Olivia looked ahead, her gaze clear and focused. Whatever I want. And this time, no one will stop me. Chloe's expensive heels clicked on the marble floor as she was escorted out. Her designer outfit no longer a symbol of status, but a mark of disgrace. The luxury she once wore so proudly now felt like heavy chains. In the humiliating silence of her downfall, every step echoed the betrayal she once thought she could get away with. She looked over at Ethan, but he stood frozen, his eyes empty, offering no words, no defense. The high society she once ruled with such ease now watched her with unconcealed contempt as she was taken away. This wasn't the life she had envisioned. And as the cool silver handcuffs tightened around her wrists, she realized, far too late, that betrayal never stays hidden for long. The very wealth and power she manipulated to her advantage were the chains that now bound her. In her most humiliating moment, the world that once adored her now turned its back, and she was left with nothing but the crushing weight of her actions. The empire had crumbled, and Chloe was left with only one truth: no one escapes the consequences forever. Chloe's name, once synonymous with wealth and success, now tarnished every deal she tried to secure. Her assets were frozen, her accounts drained, her reputation shredded in the blink of an eye. The very people she once manipulated now turned their backs, unwilling to risk their own status by being associated with her. The boardrooms that once welcomed her with open arms now shut their doors with disgust. The woman who once seemed untouchable was now a cautionary tale, her name poison in every elite circle. No more extravagant parties. No more whispered praise behind closed doors. The empire she tried to steal from Olivia had become her own ruin. Investors pulled out. Deals collapsed. The world she fought so hard to build fell apart piece by piece. And as she watched it all crumble, she realized the true depth of her betrayal. It wasn't just Olivia she had destroyed. It was herself. The price of her greed was a lifetime of isolation and disgrace. Ethan watched, numb, as everything slipped away. For the first time, he didn't speak. He didn't fight. He was paralyzed, unable to stop the destruction he'd been too blind to see coming. Chloe, the woman he once defended with all his might, was now exposed as nothing more than a fraud. The truth had been laid bare, and there was no escaping it. He could feel the walls closing in around him, but there was no escape from the wreckage he's helped create. Olivia's voice, her pained accusations, rang in his ears, but he couldn't find the words to apologize, to make things right. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. He's lost everything. The empire, the woman who loved him, his dignity all gone. And Chloe, the woman he thought would stand by him, was now his greatest regret. There was nothing left for him to say, nothing left for him to do. All that remained was the bitter taste of betrayal and the crushing weight of his own failure. As the world around him spun into chaos, Ethan stood still, a broken man. His silence spoke louder than any apology ever could. The guilt consumed him, eating away at his insides. He failed to protect Olivia when it mattered most. And now he was paying the ultimate price. The paparazzi swarmed, capturing every moment of his fall from grace. But the real pain wasn't the public humiliation. It was the devastating realization that he had let the woman he loved slip away. Olivia was gone, and no amount of money or power could bring her back. The man he once was, the powerful, confident billionaire, was gone. And in his place stood a hollow shell, haunted by the choices he made. Every whisper in the media, every judgment cast his way, felt deserved. His failure to protect Olivia, the woman who had given him everything, had cost Ethan more than he could have ever imagined. There was no redemption in this silence, only regret. Olivia stood tall, her gaze fixed ahead, unwavering as she walked away from Ethan and the empire she once built alongside him. There were no tears, no cries of pain, only a quiet strength that filled the space between her and the wreckage she left behind. She didn't need to scream. She didn't need a breakdown. This was her moment of power, reclaiming what was always hers, her life, her dignity, her future. The world may have tried to tear her down, to crush her under the weight of betrayal. But Olivia was no longer that woman. She wasn't broken. She was stronger than ever. She left the man who destroyed her life with one final, lingering look. His regret, however profound, would never be enough to undo the harm he's done. With every step she took, she left behind the past and walked confidently into her future, ready to rebuild, stronger, fiercer than before. Olivia transformed the heartbreak into something unstoppable, fuel for the fire that would build an empire of her own from the ashes of her past. She rose not as a victim, but as a woman with renewed purpose. She built a foundation that wasn't just about wealth. It was about empowering women who had been hurt, betrayed, and cast aside. Every initiative she launched, every center she built, was a testament to strength, a signal to the world that no one could break her. Where once there was pain, now there was purpose. Where once there was uncertainty, now there was clarity. Olivia poured her heart into the work that would help other women heal from the same kind of betrayal she had suffered. She didn't just rise. She lifted others with her. Her story became one of redemption, not just for herself, but for anyone who's ever been knocked down and told they couldn't stand again. Olivia's empire was not just about wealth. It was about power, strength, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Every time Olivia took the stage, she showed the world who she truly was. She wasn't soft. She was fierce. Every speech, every moment she stepped into the spotlight was a silent, powerful blow to the ones who try to break her. She's built her own platform, and she used it to lift others, the women who were hurt by the same kind of people who hurt her. The ones who thought they had no voice now had a champion. And in each of those moments, Olivia's power grew. Every woman she helped, every life she touched, was a step closer to complete healing for herself and for them. She didn't need Ethan or anyone else to validate her anymore. She was her own validation. She was stronger than ever. The pain had become a catalyst, propelling Olivia forward with a force no one could deny. And every time she lifted someone else up, she chipped away at the past that tried to bury her. Olivia stood before Ethan one last time, her eyes cold, emotionless. I forgive you, she whispered. But it wasn't for him. It was for herself. She was done with the pain, done with the past. Forgiveness was her release, a final act of control that gave her peace. Not him. Ethan's face crumpled with regret, with a pain that was now his alone to bear. But Olivia was unmoved. He didn't deserve her forgiveness, but she gave it anyway, not to free him, but to free herself from the weight of the years she spent holding on to anger and hurt. She had nothing left to prove. The man who tried to break her, who tried to steal everything she built, now stood in front of her, helpless and diminished. Olivia's forgiveness was her final victory. She no longer needed the closure he couldn't offer. She was free, truly free, and nothing he did or said would ever change that. She walked away stronger than ever, leaving him with nothing but her shadow. Ethan stood outside Olivia's gala, his world having fallen apart long ago. He watched from the sidelines, his place in the spotlight now a distant, painful memory. The woman he thought he could control was now the one in control. Her name synonymous with strength and success. And it was a reality he couldn't escape. Olivia walked into the event, her confidence radiant, and he was just another spectator to her triumph. The realization hit him with brutal clarity. Everything he had, everything he believed in gone. The empire he once held so tightly had crumbled under the weight of his own deceit. He could no longer claim Olivia's love or the life he had so carelessly built and then destroyed. He was nothing but a shadow, watching from the outside, as the woman he betrayed rose higher than he could have ever dreamed. His power was gone. His influence was gone. And the woman who once was his was now the queen of her own empire. It was a painful truth, one he could never undo. Olivia gazed out over the city, a place that once seemed to swallow her whole. Now, she owned every piece of it, metaphorically and literally. The glittering skyline below was a constant reminder of how far she's come. From the depths of betrayal to the heights of success, she stood at the top, stronger than she's ever been. The city that once rejected her, that witnessed her humiliation, was now her kingdom, and she was the undisputed ruler of her destiny. Every setback, every heartbreak, had led to this moment. She didn't just survive anymore. She thrived. The world that once tried to crush her now watched in awe as she took her rightful place at the top. She was no longer a victim of circumstance. She was the architect of her future. And as she looked out at the horizon, a serene smile on her lips, she knew the best was yet to come. Her past was behind her, and her empire was just beginning. Nothing and no one could take this away from her. What a journey of resilience and reclamation. If Olivia's story of overcoming betrayal and rebuilding her life inspired you, don't forget to show your support. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories of strength and triumph. Click the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.